Okay, this is my review for UFC 139. It was Shogun versus Henderson. Let's first start off with saying that this was an excellent card. It was one of those cards where you kind of knew that it was going to be a good UFC card, but it wasn't one. In hindsight, it's one that was definitely a pay-per-view buy, and not going to like a Buffalo Wild Wings or to a Hooters to watch. It was definitely one that you should have bought, that I should have bought. But it was just a really excellent card to fight, and the main event, when we get to it, was great. But let's first start off with Stephan Bonnar versus Kyle Kingsbury. This fight, I thought that it was going to be, the same old Stephan Bonnar out there trying to go blow for blow against a guy who was more of a kind of a technical striker. And that's the way I kind of called it in my predictions. But Stephan Bonnar went out there and he did something that he normally doesn't do, and he went the safe way, the way of not turning into a street brawl. But he went out there and used his ground game and beat him up on the ground instead of standing up with him. Now, I don't know about you guys, but previously from watching all of his other fights, he likes to turn fights into a brawl, and I kind of really wasn't expecting that. But that's great that he's being a safer fighter, trying to get himself where he needs to get to in the fighting game. So Bonnar wins by unanimous decision by beating this guy up all 3 rounds and using his jiu-jitsu, which was excellent, by the way. So then we'll move on to Martin Kampmann versus Rick Story. This one was just... Rick Story went out there, caught Kampmann with a couple of good shots in the first, but then Kampmann started to really find his range by picking him apart striking-wise and not turning it into a super fast-paced street fight type of fighting. He just used his kickboxing to his advantage, his better striking, and that's what he did. He just basically picked Rick Story apart and just beat him in every round. He just beat him in every round, and he wins by decision, a split decision, and Kampmann moves on to someone else. But it's good to see that he really stuck to the game plan, because from his previous fights, from all of his interviews and stuff, he says that he has a really hard time following game plans, and this time he really stuck to it. And you see what happens when you have to go in there with a strategy and you execute it. It could be a great thing. So next fight is Uriah Faber versus Brian Bowles. This fight was, it's supposed to be a high-impact fight, and it was, Bowles goes in there and he hits hard. Uriah Faber, he has that unorthodox striking and good ground game, and that's pretty much what came out. Uriah Faber got him to the ground and caught him with the submission. The first round was back and forth. Uriah still won that round by getting him onto the ground and really controlling him. But during that second round, he, caught him with a punch and got that guillotine on him, his famous guillotine, alpha male guillotine that he, his team is really, they really focus on for their signature submission. And he puts it on and locks it in and chokes Bowles out in the second round, 127. So Uriah Faber gets the next title shot. So it'll be Uriah Faber versus Cruz 3, the trilogy, which I'm very interested in seeing that, because the second fight was a really good fight. It wasn't a stale fight. These guys were throwing blow for blow, and the pace is just unbelievable, guys. So then let's move on to the next fight. Wanderlei Silva versus Kung Lee. you know, on paper, Conley looked like he was going to come in there and really, use his kicking style to kind of keep Wanderlei away from him and not get caught with a bunch of barrage of punches and whatnot. And he tried to do that in the first round, and even in the second round, he tried to do that. But Wanderlei started to really catch on to his kicks and his fakes and everything like that. And but what it was good to see in this fight also was someone who really didn't bring the traditional MMA style of the great three, which are wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and boxing. And some people may say judo or something like that. But, the main stables, you have someone who brings the taekwondo and actually wins fight with it. And it was good to see that element into a traditional MMA, bring it into the cage. Even though it didn't work out for him, Conley ended up getting TKO'd in the second round, 4 minutes and 49 seconds into it. What happened is he just got caught with Wanderlei, just caught him with a bunch of punches in the middle of his kicks. So he would throw a kick, and then he would shoot straight down the middle, catch him with a bunch of punches, and then clinch him. And once he got that Muay Thai clinch, it was just knees all day. I mean, nasty knees. Multiple knees, and Kung Lee just couldn't take it. It was just so many knees. It was really a vintage Wanderlei Silva. It really was. Knees all day. Same way he beat multiple of his opponents in Pride. Just knees, clinch, knees. He did the same thing to Kung Lee, and Kung Lee face really showed it, and it does show it if you see him in the post-conference interview. So you guys can kind of hold off the retirement party for Wanderlei Silva, and he goes on and he lives on to fight another day. As far as Kung Lee, who knows what they'll do? They'll probably give him another tester, maybe someone who's a little bit, a lower ranked fighter or something like that, kind of to give him a refresher, give him a chance to kind of catch up with the talent that's in the UFC versus what he's used to, which is the Strikeforce talent. So let's move on to the next fight, the main event, Shogun versus Dan Henderson. This fight, guys, was the best fight I have ever seen. This fight was excellent. If you missed this fight, I feel sorry for you. If you are a fight fan and you missed this fight, I just feel sorry for you. It was an excellent fight. It had everything a great fight has, and that's back and forth, almost knockouts, guys having the will and the heart to continue, blood, it just had everything, a close, even though it ended in a close decision, which I'm going to get to that soon. These guys from the first round, Dan Henderson coming out there with the H-bomb, with the right hand, and really just laying it on Shogun and catching Shogun and blooding him up early and really just beating him up pretty much, the first round. Second round also, he did the same thing. But within those rounds, in the first round, it happened to Dan Henderson too. He got hit with a punch that basically caught him in the back of the head, and he fell down too. But he ended up falling down and going for a single leg to kind of recover. When Dan Henderson hit Shogun with the right hand, that overhand right that he throws, Shogun recovered, but he took a little bit of time. He took a little beating before he recovered. Dan Henderson, when he recovered, he had himself pretty much caught up. Bundled up as far as guard-wise, as far as not really taking that much damage. But he was hurt. He really was hurt and caught off balance. Then you have the third round up. Third round was Dan. He ended up catching Dan Henderson in some crazy spots. And, Dan Henderson was, basically throwing his punches, but he was getting caught with a jab straight down the middle. So as he was throwing the right, Shogun was catching him straight down the middle with the jab, 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 jab. And then we went, and, that round was, kind of a toss-up, but I still gave it to Dan. Then the fourth round came, and then you saw a complete change in Dan Henderson. His gas tank had completely depleted, and it was pretty much Shogun mounting him, catching him with punches. He caught him again, knocked him down, mounted him. Fifth round, same thing happened. It should have been a 10-8 round for the fifth round, because it was just Shogun on top of Dan Henderson in a mount, switching back from half guard to mount to side position, back to mount, back to side position to mount again, and throwing punches, doing that also. That was the whole fifth round, but they didn't. But then the judges gave didn't give a 10-8 round, nowhere, not in the first round when Dan Henderson knocked down Shogun, and not the fifth round where it was just total dominance by Shogun. It just baffles me. But this fight, if you watch it, it was really too close to call. So you really can't argue one way or another. You can, if you're biased one way or another, then yes. But other than that, if you watch the fight, you just get so immersed into watching the fight that you're not really focusing on who's winning what round and who's winning the other round. You're just really so focused on just how great this fight is. It was really an epic fight. So Dan Henderson wins by unanimous decision. What's he going to do next? Who knows? Maybe they'll give him a title shot against John Jones after the Machida fight that John Jones has coming up in December. So let's see what happens, guys. But I do want to get a shout out to Terrence Owens. He told me he's a big Dan Henderson fan, and he kept telling me that Dan Henderson was going to win. I told him that Shogun was going to win, but obviously Shogun didn't win. So you were right. You told me so. But once again, shout out to him. Once again, guys, if you like my video, please rate, comment, and subscribe. And peace out.